Hello everyone, this is Ashley Tucker. Thank you for joining me today. Today I'm sharing an Alice in Wonderland themed card design featuring some stamp sets from Pink and Maine and some Distress Oxide ink blending. I started out by taking the Wonderland stamp set from Pink and Maine and stamping a bunch of those images onto some Neenah Classic Crest Solar White cardstock using my Gina K Designs Jet Black Amalgam ink. Now, right off the bat with the coloring, you can see that I've already colored in that cat, and I used some non-traditional colors. But actually, after I finished coloring in the cat, I decided I wanted to color it in a more traditional palette, so I'm going to stamp it again, and you'll see me color it in later. So for all of the coloring, I'm using my Copic markers, and I have the marker caps off to the side so that you can see the colors that I'm using. This card has quite a bit of coloring in it, so I did have to speed up the video pretty fast so that I could include everything. It took me a little while to get Alice's hair right. I find it a little bit more difficult to do yellow blonde hair than a lot of other hair colors. Before I started coloring this Alice, I did stamp her on another piece of paper to practice so that I could figure out exactly what colors I wanted to use, and that made it a little bit easier. I find that it's a really good idea to have a scrap piece of paper close by when you're doing Copic coloring. This way you can test out any of your color combinations before you actually use them on your stamped images, and you'll have a better idea if they're going to work out. I did some really simple coloring for her skin. I only used 2 colors, and then I took the blush marker and added a little bit of blush to her cheeks. I kept the coloring with Alice really traditional, and this is actually what made me want to change the Cheshire Cat. I really like the way the green Cheshire Cat came out, and I do think that I might use that for a future card design. It would be kind of fun to do a very non-traditional Alice in Wonderland look, but for this card I decided to go with the traditional. I was really so excited when I saw this stamp set from Pink and Maine because I absolutely love Alice in Wonderland, and I was so excited to start using these stamps. And I know that I'm going to have to make another Alice in Wonderland card soon because I only used a couple of the stamps from the set. There's so many different characters on that set, and I want to use them all. For the white rabbit, I colored in his little shirt yellow and his jacket with some red colors and his bow tie brown. And now I'm working on his pants, which I'm making a really dark gray. Now this, of course, is the white rabbit, so I do want him to be a white rabbit, but I don't want to not color him at all. I want to shade a little bit so it's not just a flat white rabbit with no dimension. So I picked out a really light gray marker in order to add that shading. And by the way, I also used this light gray marker to add shading to Alice's apron and her stockings. Alright, so now you can see I stamped a second Cheshire Cat, so now I can start coloring him in with the traditional colors. I had to practice quite a bit in order to get these colors down because I don't own that many Copic markers, and it was a little bit difficult to figure out the color combination that I needed to create these specific colors. After a few attempts on a scrap piece of paper though, I found these colors and I think that they worked out really well. So I first colored in all of the stripes on the body, and then I did something a little bit different with the face. I filled in the entire face with the RV13, and then I covered that all up with the RV34, and then I went over just the top portion of the face with the V06. And to finish up the face, I took the V17 and I colored in the stripes on the sides and the nose. I think that coloring just that top part of the face in the darker purple color made a big difference. It's a really subtle, small detail, but to me it had such a big impact. Alright, so as you can see, I colored in that little table with some brown colors, and now I'm going to color in the teapot with some yellow colors. I considered coloring in all of the tiny details on this teapot with some different colors, but it's a very small teapot, so it would have been pretty difficult to color in all of those little sections, and also I think it could have gotten pretty busy. So instead, I decided to do the teapot and the teacup in monochromatic colors, and I just colored in some of the details with darker shades. After that, the coloring was all done, and I used the coordinating dies in order to cut out all of those images. To create the background for my card, I cut a piece of Bristol Smooth paper to be 4 by 9, and I taped it down to a hardboard in order to do some Distress Oxide ink blending. I blended with the colors Tumbled Glass, Salty Ocean, Blueprint Sketch, and Black Soot. Now, with the blending on this paper, I was trying to keep the center of the paper nice and light, and as it went out towards the sides, it would get a little bit darker, creating kind of a vignette look. Once that blending was done, I used my hand to sprinkle some water droplets on the paper, and I let those sit for a little while, and then I took a paper towel and I soaked them up, which creates this nice texture in the background. I used my ATG gun in order to adhere this background onto a card base, which I created out of some more Bristol Smooth paper. Next, I took out the Tea-rific stamp set from Pink and Main, and I'm going to stamp these silhouette images onto that background using Blueprint Sketch Distress Oxide ink. I considered using black ink for this, but I'm really glad that I changed my mind and used the Blueprint Sketch because I really like the look that that creates. Next, I took a piece of Bazzill Licorice Twist cardstock and I cut down the center with some scissors and did a wavy line so that I now have 2 strips with that wavy line on one edge. I then took those 2 black strips and I popped them up with foam tape along the left and the right side of my card. The card that I'm creating today is supposed to look like Alice falling through the rabbit hole, so these 2 black strips actually create the walls of that hole. For my sentiment, I picked out a stamp from the Wonderland set, and I stamped it with Versamark ink onto a piece of Bazzill Licorice Twist cardstock, which I prepped with my powder tool. I then embossed that sentiment using Alabaster white embossing powder from Brutus Monroe. I cut out that sentiment and I added some foam tape to the back, and then I popped it up on the top portion of my card. I also added foam tape to the back of all of the images that I colored in, and then I started to add them to my card to create this scene. I thought that the Cheshire Cat looked perfect sitting on top of the sentiment, all safe while everybody else was falling. He always seems to be just kind of chilling when everybody else is in trouble. I used my white gel pen and I added a whole bunch of dots all the way down the center of the card, making some of them different sizes, and this kind of creates a bokeh effect and it kind of looks maybe like it's a little bit sparkly. I really wanted this scene to look kind of dreamy and a little bit crazy like Alice in Wonderland usually is. Next, I took that same gel pen and I added some highlights and details to my colored in images. I also made sure to take that pen and brighten up the highlight on all of their eyes because those highlights did get a little bit lost when I did the coloring. Now, of course, I always have to add a little bit of sparkle to my cards, and this one is no different. So I took my Wink of Stella glitter brush and I went over the sentiment. The last thing that I did to finish up this card is I took these raindrops embellishments from Lucy's cards and I added a few of them here and there all the way down the card, and I glued those down using my Gina K Designs Connect glue. And with that, this card is all done, and here's a closer look at the finished card. I absolutely adore this card. When I was first coming up with the concept for this card, I was nervous that it wouldn't work out, but I'm glad that I tried because it totally worked out, and I love it. Thank you so much for watching today. I hope you really enjoyed this card design featuring that awesome Wonderland stamp set from Pink and Main. All of the supplies that I used to make this card can be found in the description down below. If this is your first time watching today and you enjoyed this card design, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so that you can see all of my future videos. I do new card videos every single week, and I'm going to be back with another one really soon. Again, thank you so much for watching today. I appreciate all of you, and I hope you have a good day today.